Chapter 1. Crossed Paths. Nong Khai, 2005. Langpor! Langpor! A thin boy clad in a red jersey paired with matching shorts dashed to the monk's house. Upon reaching the staircase's landing, he shook off his Changdao flip-flop and walked up the 9-step stairs to the wooden monk's cell above. Changdao is a popular but inexpensive flip-flop brand in Thailand. The resounding footfall awakened the ascetic monk from his meditative state, causing him to open his eyes in a peaceful manner and cast a gaze of disapproval upon the naughty boy. Harn, or Vasaraksin, now realized his misbehavior. He walked on his tiptoes and crawled on his knees across the wooden floor towards Luangpor, touching his forehead on the floor 3 times to pay homage before scooting towards the old monk. How many times do I have to tell you to walk, not run?
Right, right. Tarn won't run anymore.
Tarn was a temple boy who was raised in a temple. It wasn't because he was an orphan, but this temple was where his biological father had entered the monkhood. His mother divorced his father and moved back to Chiang Mai when Tarn was only 1 year old. Nevertheless, both of them never abandoned their child. Instead, Tarn had been brought up with strict discipline. He knew his mother actually wanted to take him with her, but Tarn couldn't accompany her due to Luang Pu's restraint, stating that Tarn couldn't live far from the Mekong River until the age of 18. Otherwise, he would meet his demise if he tried to defy his own fate. Consequently, his mother inevitably left Tarn with his father. There were times that Tarn felt neglected when Tong and other kids called him an unloved child, and his mother had to dump him for Luang for to look after him here because of the financial crisis. When Tarn cried and ran to Luangpur, the devout monk said nothing but to hand a passbook with Tarn's name on it, revealing the balance in his bank account. Oh my, Tarn had roughly 1 million baht in his bank account. So, you still think your mother is so down and out that she can't raise you? Tarn waggled his head in denial and looked down at the balance in his account. Had his mother been depositing 100,000 baht each month for him all along? Damn, if only he had known he had this much money, he would have asked Wangpor to buy a phone to play games like the other kids, not to be afraid and think Wangpor was poor. Then, stop sulking like a girl already. You're a boy. You need to be strong. You mustn't cry so easily. Tarn nodded. So, why did Wangpor and Mom have to part ways? Why do you have to become a monk for life? Why Mom can't be with us here? Tarn, listen. Sometimes humans can't fight their fate. The reason Ravi 1 and I couldn't be together is a matter of karma. And that was what Luangpor said. But for some unknown reason, Tarn had a gut feeling that the actual reason behind their separation might have been him. However, he chose to keep his thoughts to himself, refraining from asking any further questions as he feared his suspicion might have been true. Back to the present, Tarn wanted to ask Luangpur to visit I's house at Ban Nampe, Ratanawapi district to see the Naga fireballs. He is a term in Thai for calling elder siblings or older persons, regardless of gender, opposite to the term no. People said that there was a spot so the visitors could see many of them, and Tarn wanted to witness it too. What makes you rush to me like this? Want to go out? Tarn nodded. Yes, please let me go there. I want to see the Naga fireballs at Ban Nampe. They say there's a spot where I can see a bunch of them. Expal. Captain Tepop Raksin cast a gaze at his beloved son, who was staring back at him with dewy eyes, and sighed. Now, Tarn had already reached the age of 12. Wang Pu said his son would meet a savior who saved him from the tomb. Moreover, he perceived a sign during the meditation of a giant bird approaching Tarn. Perhaps the time had finally come.
Longpor?
You can go,
Yay!
but keep in mind, do not say anything to things you see in the Mekong River. Understood?
Alright. You have told me it 1,000 times already.
The old monk kept saying to him, like a broken record that Tarn knew by heart. Give me your hand.
Yes?
Even with a puzzled face, Tarn still held out his hand to Luangpur. Luangpur grabbed the monk's bag, searched for something, and placed it on Tarn's palm. An amulet, the one Luangpu gave to Luangpur before the pilgrimage. If you find the one who deserves this Prarad amulet, don't hesitate to give it to him.
Eh? How could I know?
We have the supernatural sense, extrasensory perception. It will come to your sense about whom to give it to when you meet one. Tarn scratched his head with slight confusion, but if it was Longpor's demand, Tarn had no choice but to follow through. So Tarn devoutly paid homage to Prarad amulet in his own hand and draped it around his neck.
I will find him, Longpor.
Longpor nodded in acknowledgement. No other words passed his lips to his son. The holy man closed his eyes and returned to the meditative state again. Tarn paid homage 3 times to farewell and quietly walked on his knees to leave the monk's cell. He headed to his bedroom opposite Longpor's, putting the money and clothes into the backpack that had already been used for 3 years. Longpor said it was genuine and told Tarn to take good care of it and use it for 5 years. Tarn couldn't help frowning at this idea. He had 1 million baht lying in his bank account, but he needed to use the shabby bag for this long and got mocked by his friends. After packing up his belongings, Tarn walked down from the monk's cell, slid his feet into the flip-flop, and strode to the bus stop in front of the Wat Po Chai temple. Today was more bustling than ever as the Naga Fireball Festival was ongoing. Many people clustered together to make wishes to Luangpor's side, which annoyed the boy a little that he had to wade through the large crowd.
Look! Tarn is right there. Hey, Tarn, this way.
There came the sound of Piyai, Tarn's closest senior friend. His voice was so loud that it drew all the attention from those nearby. But before long, Mommy Jumpy, Yai's mother, twisted his ear, causing Piyai to groan from the pain. Tarn was amused by Piyai's posture before running towards the brothers' family standing under the tree so fast that he was unaware of a person standing there. Tarn stomped and turned to the boy whom he had hit. The young stranger picked up lotuses scattering on the floor and faced up to Tarn with dissatisfaction. That kid was the same size as him, but just when Tarn was approaching the boy his age, Piai's hand grabbed him by the collar.
Where are you going, Tarn?
I'm here, this way.
I bumped into a boy.
That boy still cast a displeased glance at him. He dressed in sumptuous clothing, a white t-shirt and knee-length black trousers, with a face that could anticipate a gorgeous young man when growing up. They stared at each other in the eye for a while, the disapproval look from the boy's side and the bewildered look from Tarn. Tarn wasn't so sure about the reason behind the stare. His head went completely blank, yet his heart pounded like a drum.
Master!
That call caused the boy to swivel and leave. Tarn was about to follow him, but he was halted by Yai. Who? Yai looked left and right but couldn't see any youngsters around here. Only elderly people all over the place. Tarn wriggled loose from Yai and tried to chase the young stranger, But Yai didn't let him go. With a significant difference in size between the big brother and the young boy, Tarn was overpowered by Yai's strength and couldn't break free from the tight grip. Left with no trace, that mysterious boy completely disappeared into the crowd. Tarn sighed in nuisance.
Yay! I lost him now, you see?
Psst, forget about him already. Mom is calling now. We have to pick up other relatives and bring them to our house. Tarn frowned. That kid might have been the one to whom Tarn needed to give Rarad amulet. Not to mention that his face was very familiar, but Tarn couldn't recall where they had met before. Go! Yai rushed and wrapped his arm around Tarn's neck to make him follow. Tarn looked back in the direction that the kid from nowhere had vanished. His heart sank to think he wouldn't see that young stranger again. Why? That's weird. Manampe, Ratanawapi district. Tarn had visited Piyai's house a few times before. This was his third time here. Mommy Jampi, Piyai's mother, cherished Tarn so dearly and said that Yai could get into grade 10 thanks to Tarn. Tarn giggled in satisfaction at being Mommy Jampi's favorite child, while Yai frowned displeasedly. Even though he sucked at studying, Yai was sure his sports skill was second to none. The big boy grumbled to himself.
Relax and make yourself at home here. Look at you, sweetie. Even in shabby clothes, you're still so cute and handsome.
Not only complimenting, but Jumpy also caressed Tarn's cheek with ardor. Tarn responded to her with a sweet, alluring smile, even broader, just in case he could have more treats every day during his stay.
Ouch!
The slum from the big boy was so hard that it shook him to the brain. Stop making wide-eyed, pleading-faced shit to my mom. So frustrating.
Yai! Why did you hit him? What if Longfor knew?
Mom, you keep flattering him and taking his side in front of me. It annoys me. If only Yai knew, he wouldn't have invited the little boy here. Tarn grinned in pleasure while twitching his eyebrows to taunt the big boy behind Jumpy's back. Here he goes again, Mom. He's mocking me. Jumpy glanced at Tarn. The little boy suddenly switched his expression to the woeful, pitiable one.
I don't see your little brother doing anything. Come right here, bad kid.
Ouch, Mom! Don't hit me! How dare you, Tarn? You little pain. I'll kick your ass. Tarn laughed light-heartedly and escaped to the doorway with Yai chasing after him. Jumpy's voice echoed from behind to tell her kids to not come back later than 9 and take care of each other too. Yai's house was close to the Naga Farbol sightseeing spot. They playfully kicked each other's butt for a few moments until they reached the sightseeing spot. I'm exhausted now. Let's grab some grub.
Mm, but you pay for my meal.
Screw you! Why it has to be me every time?
You're older than me. Big brother must be generous.
Okay, okay. Tarn smirked and followed Yai to the smoothie cart, ordering smoothies for both of them before searching for a perfect spot with the best view. Yai's family wasn't originally from Nong Khai. According to Yai, he had relocated from the south to accompany his father who had found his career here. Just like Chiang Mai was Tarn's family's place of origin, no, to be precise, Luangpur was a half Nong Khai native. At first, his parents just wanted to seek blessings and make wishes from the local monks. However, things took turns when his mother unexpectedly went into labor and gave birth to him in Nong Khai, so they had to stay a little longer. But when they decided to return to Chiang Mai, something came up, and ended up with Tarn and Luangpur had settled down here ever since. Hey, check that out! Who the heck watches the fireball and do such a thing? Who do they think they are? Snobbish assholes. Yai pointed out for Tarn to look. Tarn saw a well-dressed group of people portraying wealth by their demeanor. They wanted to enjoy the blessing of Naga fireballs like everybody else, but since they didn't want to come in contact with the crowd, they pitched their own tent while sipping tea with grace and tranquility. Their posture resembled Tarn's grandma.
Let them be. We better find our own seats before they're all taken.
Uh-huh. Tarn and Yai found their seating spot, but soon after, Tarn could hear the sound of the wind whispering into his ear. Suddenly, the picture of that boy he met this morning came right into his mind. Tarn dropped the smoothie glass in his hand, turned around and rushed towards the way he thought that mysterious boy would be. Yai could see Tarn darted away from his side, so Yai abruptly chased after the little boy.
Help! Somebody help him! Master! Master!
A loud voice cried for help, making Tarn race toward the sound direction. When he arrived at the accident scene, Tarn swiftly kicked off his shoes and jumped into the river.
Splash!
Tadayu Kamalvipak, or Paya, had never drowned before in his life, and he did not mean to fall into the river. He was trying to take a picture on the old pier, but suddenly an unknown hand dragged him down into the river. Paya could actually swim, but no matter how hard he tried, he struggled to hold his head above the water. Mekong was too vigorously craving to swallow him whole. Paya held his breath, kept his eyes wide open to see what lay underwater, swung around and tried to kick his feet again, but he could not move. Why though? What was wrong with him? The sun ray dimly shined during the dusk hour, giving him poor vision. He could see nothing but the water plants swaying around. Then the two red lights hastily advanced him. Its gigantic figure caused Pius' body to shake with fear. As hard as he tried, he couldn't escape from there. Help! Somebody help me! It was closing in, coming to get me. Squelch! The enormous shadow dissolved all of a sudden when somebody's hand clutched at his shoulder. Chadayu was breathless and could no longer hold his breath, so he collapsed himself and let the rescuer grab him by the neck to bring him to the shore. How fortunate of him that this person could save him in the nick of time. Harn hauled Chadayu back to the shore. He could see a massive crowd awaiting. Yai held out a hand for assistance. These people must have been the same group that Yai wanted him to see.
Hurry! Bring my grandson back to the shore! Bring my grandson back to the shore!
Bring me up too, will you? God damn it. Tarn screamed in his head, but the one who actually brought him to the shore was Piyai. Paya kept choking out the water after being able to sit on solid ground. He was surrounded by his grandmother, mother, and his aunt. Hinun, his nanny, handed him a towel to cradle his body and handed another towel for
You!
the boy who bumped into him this morning.
You can swim, can't you?
Tarn knew because the boy could actually float himself to follow him, not bearing the weight on him too much like those capable of swimming.
Why don't you swim back to the shore?
Paya leveled himself up with close support from his mother.
Paya, Paya, don't move too much, my dear. Just in case you're injured somewhere. What if you shift your bones?
Said his mother, who tried to assist him all the time, but Paya couldn't care by now. He froze his gaze, motionless, at the boy in the worn-out football uniform.
Thank you for saving my grandson. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
The grandmother turned around to show her gratitude. Paya looked at his grandmother and switched his gaze to the boy before him. This boy saved his life nonetheless, and he wasn't the one with ungratefulness. Paya expressed his appreciation. Thank you for saving me. Despite how Paya wished to ask so badly if Tarn had seen anything underwater, assuming from his posture, Tarn didn't see it. If he did, the boy wouldn't scold him like this. Tarn looked at Paya and touched his necklace. He pursed his lips together and walked towards Paya. He took the necklace off and hung it around Paya's neck. The rescued boy was stunned by that action and puzzled, while the adults exchanged their gazes in confusion. "Rarad necklace, I'll give it to you," said Tarn, and taking a closer look, the more he noticed how refined that face was. "Rarad? Oh my goodness! Can you really give away such a holy item like this so easily, kid?" Paya's aunt exclaimed in amazement. Paya lowered his gaze to that necklace and was about to return it, but Tarn halted him. "Take it. I want to give it to you. Wangpor said I must give it to the one who deserves it, and I think it's you." Tarn was very certain that this boy was the one who should receive it. Paya looked at him with astonishment. He landed his eyes on the necklace and lifted his gaze in appreciation to Tarn. "Thank you." Paya had no idea how much it would cost, but after all of this fearful event, Paya also agreed to have it with him. Tarn smiled broadly. "Don't mention it." "How lovely! You not only rescued him, but also gave him a necklace. Can I treat you to a meal for appreciation?" The grandmother invited him in a friendly manner. Haya was pulled into his mother's arms and eyed Tarn pleadingly, hoping he would accept it. Tarn discussed it with Yai, but Yai just shrugged in response. Then he turned around to answer. "We're afraid we can't go. You have to rush home now." With a soaking wet body like this, he must have been given a real earful by Mommy Jumpy. "Oh dear, that's true. You're soaked up to the skin. What about changing clothes from ours? You must be the same size as our boy, I suppose." Tarn shook his head in denial. This wouldn't be good. If Longpor found out, he would be in big trouble. As Yai noticed Tarn's uneasiness, he stepped in to save his brother's day. "Our house is nearby. He'd better change his clothes at home." "Really? How sad. Hmm. What about we drop by to thank your family too? Is it a good idea, Bullhorn?" The grandmother asked Pious' mom for an opinion. "I'll leave it to you, mother." Pious' mother sent a smile so kind-heartedly that Tarn didn't know how to react and clung to his brother's arm. "If you agree, please leave me there. You and me, we go together. For Paya, you can go back to change your outfit and then follow us." "Yes, Grandma." Paya accepted. The grandmother smiled at her little boy and walked towards Tarn with another female companion. "Please lead us the way." "Yes." Yai accepted and pulled Tarn closer to accompany him, with grandmother and Paya's aunt following close behind. Tarn glanced back to Paya again and found that he looked in his direction as well. Their eyes met so long that Tarn couldn't bear it and was the one who turned away first. Tut, 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 tut. His heart raced fast. He must have been ill, Tarn thought to himself. He had to let Longcore to take him to the hospital for a health checkup. Yai and Tarn brought Paya's grandmother and aunt to Mommy Jumpy. After a few words, Jumpy turned to look at Tarn, with the admiration multiplied that Yai whispered to Tarn's ear that he might have been promoted to Jumpy's biological son this time. They all had a conversation for a while. Haya, his mother, and his nanny joined them after Paya's aunt explained to them the location of Tarn's house on the phone for a long time. A bracelet was in Paya's palm, and he handed it to Tarn to express his gratitude. Tarn lowered his gaze to the bracelet before him, taking it to himself and watching it with so much joy that it was strange. His heart leaped from receiving the item from Paya. The heart leaped to the roof.
Thank you. I'll take good care of it well.
Me too. Their gaze fixed upon each other, and exchanged smiles. Their friendship fostered among the delight of the two families. But for Yai, the way Tarn looked at Paya instilled doubt in him. It was uncannily like the way his cutie pie, Nongmon, looked at him. After a lengthy gratitude expression, the Urban family excused themselves and returned home. Yai secretly noticed a woeful face from Tarn. Even though they were long gone, Tarn didn't stop looking at the bracelet.
Yai, do you think I will see him again?
Yai cast a gaze at the younger brother and said, "Probably, if destiny brings, you will." The big boy decided to feast him with a little bit of hope. "You poor thing." "Shh, shh. Tarn, get up! The fireballs are up now." The eye poked Tarn, who was lying on the mat. Tarn looked at these shooting fireballs in the sky and felt oddly satisfied.
So beautiful.
"Make a wish."
Can I do that?
Tarn asked in confusion. He had never made a wish during the Naga Fireball event before. "Just do it. Isn't it a blessing festival made for?" Yai said before palming together and closing his eyes. Tarn looked at his big brother and thought it did no harm to anyone, so he did it too.
May destinies bring us to meet again. Abracadabra.
Chonburi Province, 2562 BE. A tall, smart, and handsome man, adorned in a black leather jacket over a white tee, carrying a camping backpack and sunglasses, approached a sailor and asked, "Is this a boat to Copra Island?" Like a TV star, that sculpted face caused the boat passengers to look at him astonishingly. "Yes, sir. Hop on." The man smirked and searched for a perfect seat. At the same time, a big, hulk figure and a tall, slim one were playfully pushing each other until they reached the boat.
Because of you, PI, you asshole. Woke up so late that we almost missed the boat.
"You can't blame it on me only. You took so long to dress up, didn't you?" Both of them squabbled until they stepped in the boat, but the picking up on each other still went on. The man who was sitting in the same row decided to plug earbuds into his ears, play the music, and look away to the view outside, distancing himself from them even more. Now, the boat is heading against the wind toward Copra Island, where the Navy SEAL training base is located. It was where he intended to join in and be trained once in his lifetime, despite his mother's disagreement. He went against his mother's will to chase his dream of joining the Department of Special Investigation, or DSI, as he had always dreamed of. He was on a mission to succeed. End of chapter 1.